What if the most powerful confirmation was never meant to confirm anything at all? In the quiet aftermath of a storm that never officially broke, a single sentence attributed to Lee Min-ho's father has ignited one of the most intense waves of speculation the Korean entertainment world has seen in years. Marriage, divorce, silence, and two of the most private, most revered stars in Asia standing at the center of it all. Lee Min-ho and Song Hye Kyo, two names that carry history, prestige, and an almost mythic weight. But did their story ever truly happen? Or is the truth far more complicated than fans are prepared to accept? This is not just a rumor. This is a study of how legends are born, how silence speaks louder than statements, and how one alleged confirmation became a mirror reflecting the public's deepest curiosity. If you are still watching, subscribe. Let's get the story started as the world of your favorite celebrity unfolds.
Stay tuned.
For years, Lee Min-ho has existed as more than an actor. He is a symbol of an era, a face that defined global Hallyu expansion, a man whose personal life has been guarded with near-military precision. Song Hye Kyo, on the other hand, represents something equally powerful but different.
Grace.
Endurance. A woman whose love life has been scrutinized, romanticized, and dissected beyond what any human being should endure. When these two names began appearing in the same whispered sentence, the industry did not laugh it off. It leaned in. The reports did not explode. They surfaced quietly. A line here, a comment there, mentions of private family acknowledgement. Words like confirmed, acknowledged, understood began circulating without sources strong enough to stand on their own, yet persistent enough to refuse disappearance. Then came the most controversial claim of all, that Lee Min-ho's father had spoken. Not loudly, not in a press conference, but just enough to suggest something existed, and something had ended. And that is where the mystery deepens. No official wedding photos were ever released. No formal announcement of a marriage. No public denial either. In an industry where even dating confirmations are carefully timed and scripted, how could a marriage and divorce involving two top-tier stars occur entirely in the shadows? The answer, according to those who believe the reports, lies in one word: protection. Both Lee Min-ho and Song Hye Kyo are veterans of intense public pressure. They have watched careers rise and fall on the back of personal revelations. A private union, if it existed, would have required absolute secrecy. Family-only knowledge. Trusted inner circles. No social media trails. No accidental leaks. The kind of silence that only comes from mutual agreement and deep caution. Supporters of the theory point to subtle changes. Scheduling gaps. A shift in public demeanor. The way both stars began choosing quieter projects, more introspective roles. The absence of public romance. The presence of something unspoken. To believers, these are not coincidences. They are evidence. But then comes the other side. The side that asks the most dangerous question of all. What if none of it is true? What if the so-called confirmation was never a confirmation, but a misinterpreted comment, a translated line taken out of context, amplified by fandoms hungry for connection between two beloved figures? What if the story grew not from facts, but from emotional logic, from the idea that two icons who share similar scars must have shared a life? This is where the alleged divorce enters the narrative. Divorce implies conflict,
Loss.
an ending. Yet neither Lee Min-ho nor Song Hye Kyo has displayed public signs of bitterness toward one another. No avoidance. No tension. No carefully worded interviews hinting at heartbreak. Instead, there is neutrality. Professionalism. Distance that could mean nothing or everything. In cinematic terms, this is the moment where the camera lingers not on action, but on stillness. Because stillness can hide entire worlds. If a private marriage existed, its end may not have been dramatic. No betrayal. No scandal. Just two individuals realizing that even love, when placed under the weight of global fame, can fracture quietly. And if it never existed, then the story itself becomes a testament to how desperately audiences want their icons to be human, to find love, to fail, to survive. The alleged words of Lee Min-ho's father remain the centerpiece of the storm. A parental voice carries authority, but it also carries vulnerability. Parents speak to protect, not to expose. To calm, not to ignite. Without a recorded statement, without context, his role in this narrative remains blurred. Was it reassurance to a worried fan? A misunderstood reply? Or a rare glimpse into a truth never meant for public consumption? Until Lee Min-ho or Song Hye Kyo choose to speak, this story will remain suspended between reality and projection. A modern myth shaped by silence, star power, and the public's need for meaning. And perhaps that is the real revelation. Not whether they were married, not whether they divorced, but how easily the world builds entire lifetimes around two people who have said almost nothing at all. In the end, the question is no longer what happened between Lee Min-ho and Song Hye Kyo. The question is why we needed it to happen so badly, and whether the truth, whatever it is, will ever be as powerful as the story we have already told ourselves. But stories like this do not end simply because the facts refuse to appear. They evolve. They deepen. They turn inward. As days passed and no clarifications arrived, the silence itself became evidence in the eyes of many. In the Korean entertainment industry, denial is often swift when rumors threaten reputations. Agencies move quickly. Statements are polished. Legal language appears. Yet here, there was none of that urgency. No aggressive rebuttal. No sharp dismissal. Just an absence. And absence, when attached to stars of this magnitude, becomes a canvas onto which the public paints its own conclusions. Fans began revisiting old footage with forensic intensity. Award shows where eyes seemed to linger too long. Moments where applause felt restrained. Interviews where questions about love were answered with unusually careful phrasing. Every pause, every half-smile, every deflection was reinterpreted as residue of something once real. A past not erased, only sealed. Industry insiders, anonymous and unverifiable, added fuel rather than clarity. They spoke of unspoken rules among top-tier celebrities, of relationships that never reached the press, of agreements made long before cameras roll. According to these voices, the higher the star, the deeper the secrecy. Love, if it exists, must be invisible. Marriage becomes a risk. Divorce becomes an even greater one. In this version of events, Lee Min-ho and Song Hye Kyo were not reckless romantics. They were strategists. Two people who understood the cost of exposure and chose privacy over spectacle. If they loved, they did so quietly. If they parted, they did so without blame. No public mourning. No dramatic statements. Just a return to work, to craft, to controlled appearances. Yet there is another layer to this narrative, one that complicates everything. Song Hye Kyo has lived through a very public marriage and an even more public divorce. The aftermath was not kind. Speculation turned invasive. Commentary became cruel. Every expression was analyzed for pain. Every role choice was framed as healing. Would a woman who endured that willingly enter another marriage, especially one hidden, knowing the consequences if discovered? Or does the very secrecy suggest a desire to protect what little peace remained? Lee Min-ho's history tells a parallel story. Early fame, intense scrutiny, relationships turned into headlines before they could breathe. Over time, he became more reserved, more guarded, less willing to offer fragments of his private life to the public. For someone like him, a private union would not be a rebellion. It would be survival. And still, none of this confirms anything. Which brings us back to the alleged divorce. Divorce requires a beginning. And without proof of that beginning, the ending floats in a strange, undefined space. It exists emotionally for fans, but not legally, not publicly. It exists as a rumor powerful enough to feel real, yet fragile enough to collapse under direct questioning. Perhaps that is why this story refuses to die. It sits at the intersection of fantasy and plausibility. It does not demand belief, only curiosity. It asks the audience to decide what kind of truth they want. A documented one, stamped and announced. Or a quiet one, felt but never shown. As time moves on, new projects will arrive. New co-stars will appear. New rumors will inevitably replace old ones. But this particular narrative will linger because it is not just about romance. It is about control. About how much of themselves public figures owe the world. About whether silence is a right or a provocation. If Lee Min-ho and Song Hye Kyo were never married, then this entire episode becomes a cautionary tale. A demonstration of how easily admiration turns into assumption. How the desire for connection can create stories stronger than reality. If they were, and if it ended, then their silence becomes something else entirely. Not avoidance, but dignity. A refusal to let the most personal chapter of their lives be reduced to headlines and hashtags. And so the camera pulls back. No confirmation. No denial. Just two individuals continuing their lives under an unblinking spotlight, while the world debates a story that may never receive an ending. Because some truths are not revealed in press releases. Some are buried in silence. And some, perhaps, were never meant to be uncovered at all.